Hello and welcome to Comic Cuts, the panel show. My guests today from the worlds of comics and TV and magic and movies are Mike Collins and Ali Cook.
Hello.
How do?
Comic Cuts. We're looking at a panel and we comprise a panel. There's a few of us, so the panel sees a panel and we talk about the comics from the panel we discuss and we call it Comic Cuts. Hello and welcome to Comic Cuts. I'm Kev F. Sutherland, the bloke who writes and draws comics for Beano and Marvel and now adapts Shakespeare into graphic novels for kids and also has a hand in the Scottish falsetto sock puppet theatre. And this is your favourite podcast which has an occasionally remote connection to comics. Don't worry if you don't know or care anything about comics. Half the time, neither do my guests, and it doesn't hurt. My guests have brought with them a panel from a comic or something close, and we're going to see if we can identify it and talk about it, and maybe we and you will learn something about comics we didn't already know. Or maybe we'll just show off a bit and have an enjoyable chat. Let's see. Hello, Ali. Hello, Mike.
Hello.
Hey.
Now, Mike Collins, must just establish you're not the Michael Collins who was the third person to land on the moon in 1969.
No, he's long gone. And I was only 8 at the time, so.
Well, you know, they're lowering the age all the time. And Ali Cook, you definitely didn't present Letter from America on BBC Radio from 1946 to 2004.
You know what? I definitely didn't. But what is tragic is when he passed away, I got a lot of fan mail from his followers, and I didn't know what to do with it. All these letters were sent to me, and I was like, I don't know what to do with it. So I tried to send them to his agent. Yeah.
Letters. Oh, try and tell the kids today about letters. Mike, you and I started way back in the day of letters. We started about the same time getting artwork into fanzines,
that's right,
didn't we?
And also into Marvel UK, because I remember being at the Marvel UK offices one day and some of your stuff came in. It was a comic strip you'd done called The Vomitarium.
Yes, that was one of the first things I ever had published. I'd forgotten about that.
There you go.
And now, for listeners at home who don't know my two guests, Mike, you bill yourself on your website as storyboard artist on Doctor Who Rivals?
Oh,
Rivals? Yeah. You storyboarded the Rivals. His Dark Materials, Good Omens. And I know you from your long-term work on comics. How did you make that transition?
I'd always fancied storyboarding, actually. And to be honest, about half my career has been storyboarding for animation. So for several years, I mean, from the mid-90s onwards, I was a regular storyboard artist for a lot of preschool shows, mainly Welsh preschool shows. And I spent 3 years in the trenches storyboarding Horrid Henry.
Ah, interesting.
And storyboards in the whole world of film is another thing that, Ali, you've transitioned into. I knew you when we worked together some years ago as a magician. I knew you from the comedy circuit. And suddenly, Oscar shortlisted film director for The Pearl Comb. Comb. I keep saying The Pearl Comb, even though I know it's The Pearl Comb. I've seen the film The Pearl Comb. The Pearl Comb by Ali Cook, Oscar shortlisted film. How did you get into that?
Well, that is a good question. Well, basically, I used to, as you know, Kev, I used to do magic shows on TV, and I used to do them for Objective Productions. And Andrew O'Connor there, and one of the DOPs who used to shoot me, they both said, I think you'd be a good villain, even though I was presenting. They both said, you've got a good face for a villain. And they said you should go and do acting classes. And that was it. That was the sort of... when they first said it, I was like, I wasn't really that bothered. I was happy being a magician. And then also just because we've both been on the comedy circuit and you do a lot of writing, I just started writing scripts as well. And it kind of one thing evolved into another. And then before you know it, here we are.
Well, yes, that's the thing with you, Mike, as well. You have written as well as drawing. Does every creative person, do you think, have writing in them?
I think so. I mean, I'm probably the same as you. Growing up reading comics, I assumed that it was one person doing everything because we didn't have credits back in those days. So I just sort of had ideas for stories and I drew ideas for stories. So I filled exercise books when I was a kid at school, some of which I still have.
Wow, that's cool.
Have you found a market for old childhood art?
No, I'm afraid not, because I've still got shelves of the damn stuff.
Starting young, actually, I think runs through all of our veins. Because Ali, you would have started being a magician very young.
Well, I mean, in the magic world, older. I was about 15.
Is that old for magic?
That's old for magic, yeah. But I entered all the big competitions when I was about 16, 17. So I kind of threw myself right in it, basically. Yeah.
Mike, what's the difference between comic strips work and storyboarding? I do classes in schools, and quite often people refer to one as the other.
Actually, confusingly, if you work in French comics, it is the same thing, because if you lay out bande dessinée, a graphic novel, that's called a storyboard in French comics, which is just frustrating because we want the distinction. What you do in storyboarding for films and TV and for animation is you are doing artwork that doesn't actually see the light of day. You are doing artwork that is used by other artists to produce work, whether it's animators in the case of animation or whether it's actors in the case of live action stuff. So you are telling a story in pictures in both jobs. But in comics, that drawing is the final piece of work. But in, say, film and animation, it isn't. You're just a cog in the machine.
Do you think some people struggle with being anonymous again when they do storyboarding? Or is the money enough to make up for it?
The money's better, I will say that up front. Absolutely. When I started doing live action storyboarding about a decade ago now, when I started working on Doctor Who, on the TV show, yes, I did notice a certain bump in my income. To be perfectly frank about it. Ego. It's a tricky one. I think in comics, because you are doing the finished piece of work, so that everything on that page is you, and because with the American system now, where American artists are big names, literally, they can command all sorts of prices. I mean, there was a period shortly after our sort of big Marvel time in the 90s where you were getting a few of the artists that were getting a Mercedes or something as a 6-month bonus for staying on contract with Marvel because they contributed to the sales so much. So,
yes, very different to my relationship with Marvel.
Yes, and mine.
Where I got told they'd overpaid me royalties, so the next job I do for them, I owed them $250.
There you go.
Ali, the thing is, you're a director, and you're a director as we say, of an Oscar shortlisted film and BAFTA. BAFTA
longlisted. I find out on Tuesday.
Oh, wow. Fingers crossed, yes.
And this is the thing that so many people aspire to. Actors frequently say, what I really want to do is direct. Very few people who are directors say, what I really want to do is be a bit part actor.
I think it's all about creativity. You know, what we were saying before. I think all three of us are very creative people. And it's just different outlets. Like, I was on holiday with my daughters 2 years ago, and we went around with this storyteller who does shows for kids. And one of the ancient myths that he talked about were the mermaids of Penzance. And when I heard that, I was like, oh, that sounds like, I feel like I can turn this into a movie. And then about 6 months later, I heard another story about the Edinburgh Seven, and I mixed the two together. I just kind of came up with it in my head. And then I thought, oh, man, I want to try and make this. For me, I think it's always, certain things just spark off in me, and I feel like, can I do it? That's it. And I think it's the same. I definitely can't draw, but I can definitely write and I can definitely perform. And I think we all have these things, and there's just different outlets, and whether you get the chance to express it, basically.
But how do we make the transition from I've got this great idea and I'm going to make this thing, which is all singing, all dancing, so impressive, great CGI and everything?
Well, I mean, interestingly, one of the absolute fundamentals is the storyboarding. I mean, you were talking about it, Mike. I think what people don't realize with a film is you have all of these departments, and it's very hard to communicate to all of them what the vision is. And it's really the storyboard that does it. Mm-hmm. If you've literally got a shot of this 18th century kitchen of how it should look, well, you've then told, the production design, and then you've got the actors in there in their costumes. You've now told the costume designer. You shoot it from certain angles. You've now told the DOP. And then you show where the windows are. You've now shown the lighting guys. So in one image, you cover off about 10 departments. So that really is, it's absolutely essential. And then the other thing for us is we had to storyboard heavily because we did have a lot of VFX. For a short film, we had 96 VFX shots. And cut a long story short, if you're filming something like this and it's a CGI, but you change the angle to that, you've either upped your fee by $3,000 or lowered it by $2,000. But the point is, any change is going to cost you. So you have to meticulously storyboard. So that's from a nuts and bolts perspective, that's a really big thing. But from a getting it made perspective, I'm friends with a few producers, and I contacted one guy, and he just agreed to do it, and he did a great job. And that's the hard bit is trying to get that team on board.
And in the run up to the big awards that, frankly, are the ones that we've heard of, the BAFTA and the Oscars, you've won a few.
Yeah, so we're at 75 at the moment. Wow. So we've had a good, we've had a very good run. My favourite one we won was Women Over 50 in Film. We won that award. That was actually my favourite one. Because the film is about female empowerment, and our lead actress, Beatty, she's in her 60s, so she was absolutely thrilled that we won that. But it's brilliant that we've won that, and then we've also won like really dark horror awards at the same time. You know?
Did you have to go to all these award ceremonies? That's an awful lot of rubber chicken to get through.
I've been to a lot of them, yeah, because that you can't help but feel that if you're nominated, the more, surely, if you turn up, they're more likely to give you the award, surely. You know? So, I mean, some of them I can't go to, but I've probably been to 30% of them, I think. Here, there, everywhere from like Finland to Canada, Los Angeles, and even like Sitges, which is one of the big horror festivals. So they're all over the place, and most of them have been running for years. They've been running for years and years and years, and it's like its own little subculture. It's a fascinating world.
I mean, I've always known that where I am in the comics industry, I'm definitely in the middle. So I'm never going to win any kind of awards. I mean, I still think my greatest award is my cycling proficiency test in 1973. So,
do they acknowledge storyboard artists for TV?
You know, I'm not sure if they do or not. We're a weird little group because we don't tend to know each other very much. Because obviously, if you work on a TV production, you get called in for 2 or 3 days. You do the work, you disappear again, and somebody in production remembers your name and calls you up the next time they're on a project. So that there's no superstructure of it at all.
No.
The thing is, once you can do it, you can do it. I mean, I got the work on Doctor Who because I've been working for an advertising company a few weeks earlier, doing an advert for Lifebuoy soap for Indian television. Well, they got in touch with me, and up to that point, I've been doing like the Welsh language preschool shows, and I've been doing Horrid Henry. And they said, "Can you bring in some of your boards to show us what you can do?" And I was thinking, well, I can't bring those in, so I'll take the Lifebuoy soap ads in. So I did that, and they liked it. So I got hired on Who, and then I've sort of carried on working non-stop ever since, which is wonderful.
Do you take credit for big creative moments that we all now remember?
There's one director I worked with on a couple of shows said to me, "If you've got any ideas, Mike, put them in the board. If I don't like them, I'm going to rip you a new one." If I do like them, they're mine. I thought, that's fair enough. I get paid either way, so that's good. Funnily enough, when I was trying to get some credit to sort of go and do live action boarding, I did some stuff for Small Welsh, because I live in Cardiff. And there was a competition doing short films in Wales. And basically the budget was your lunch money, and that was about it. But it meant that I got credits on IMDb, so I could actually go and say, you know, I've done storyboarding. And one of the short films that actually ended up getting a BAFTA. And I'd had an argument with the director because there was a scene that I'd worked out where the setup of the film was it was the Normandy beach invasion, but one of the guys that steps off the boat suddenly finds himself in Normandy today. So you've got this soldier wandering around Normandy Beach, but to him, the explosions are still going off. He's been blasted everywhere, but nobody on the beach can see him. And there was one scene towards the end where there was like some kids had built a sandcastle and a flag in the sandcastle. I said, it wouldn't be great if we could set this shot up so we pull back from the sandcastle and we see a certain aspect of the story from the soldier, and that would make a really nice shot. And the director went, you're just a storyboard artist. I'm the director. I'll decide what happens. I mean, oh, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Anyway, we had this big presentation of the story, of the little films. So there's like 8 or 10 films in this competition. And we're all there, sort of all besuited. And we're sitting in this cinema. And this film comes on, gets this scene, and it is exactly how I storyboarded it. I just shouted out, yes! And everybody looked at me, and I did not care because that was my shot and it was on screen.
Fantastic. Well, we're going to get some more shots on screen now because I've asked everyone on the panel to bring a panel to the panel. You can see these images at home. You can see it on the holding page, on the artwork for the podcast episode, depending where you get your podcasts. But listener at home, you shouldn't need to see these pictures because we're going to be able to describe them. And we're going to begin by looking at the picture that has been brought in by Mike. Now, Ali, I'm going to ask you to describe for the listener at home what you see before you.
Well, it's definitely an older comic, and it's the image of a man with ginger hair, and he's trapped inside a cosmic beanie cap, and it looks like his neck has been stretched till breaking point, and his ears have been pulled left and right. Above him is the title page, which is a red background and something burp, maybe? I don't know.
We're cropped in very close, and for the benefit of the listener at home, the panelologists who study line and print and that sort of thing, I can tell you this is from a comic that looks like it's printed sometime between the 1940s and the 1970s because of the dot screening that we see and the slight bleed of the colours going over the lines. It's been done in old-fashioned pen and ink and brush and line, and it's slightly faded, which suggests it's an American comic with that American printing technique. And yes, the line drawing is a very active style, slightly cartoony, slightly superhero-ish. And in fact, there's some metallic equipment which has a certain distinctive style about it. I'm going to pull back and show us more of the full page. And now, Ali, what do you see?
Okay, it says The Silver Burper, and it says featuring the far-out fiendishness of Dr. Bloom. Oh, and then what you see below, it's like a green kind of robot man with his neck stretched out, and then you can see his face is hidden in some sort of helmet, which must be the beanie cap. And on the left, it says, it's by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Oh, and then on the left is a Marvel character, and then on the right, which is the Stony Man, but I don't know his name. And then on the right, there's a burning man being pinned down.
Before I reveal who it is entirely we're looking at, I'll just tell for the listener at home that we're looking at an entire splash page, one picture filling the page, which would be the first page of a comic strip story. It is, as we say, credited to Stan Lee and, more significantly, Jack Kirby. And Ali, would you like to have a guess at what we're looking at before I reveal?
Well, is it the Fantastic Four?
It is the Fantastic Four, but in a particular sort of guise. I'm going to say that this is from a comic called Not Brand Echt, which did parodies of Marvel superhero comics, but was published by Marvel Superhero and done by the people who'd done the original comics. But Mike, please tell us more.
Yeah, right. It's from Not Brand Echt, and it's the first and I think the most indelible image of the Fantastic Four for me. I love the fact that Jack Kirby started out as an animation in-between drawer. He worked on the original Popeye cartoons back in the 40s. And he always had a sort of humorous bent to his stuff. So even when he was doing the big cosmic serious stuff with Stan Lee, he still wanted to get a bit of humor in there. And I imagine Stan had very little to do with this. I think it's pretty much all Jack.
For the listener at home who might not be familiar with Stan Lee or Jack Kirby, they are more likely, in my experience, to know the name Stan Lee because
Yeah.
of his self-publicizing. But Jack Kirby, Mike, a quick rundown of.
Jack Kirby is the man that invented Captain America in the 1940s. He worked through the 50s doing a lot of horror stuff. He did strips like Challenge of the Unknown for DC Comics. Then when Marvel Comics started in the early 60s, Jack was the guy that basically designed everything. I mean, the Fantastic Four was him. The X-Men was him. Spider-Man was him to start with, but they didn't like the way he drew Spider-Man, so Steve Ditko drew that. But basically, everything we know about Marvel Comics and everything the Marvel Cinematic Universe is beholden to is down to the brain and the pencil of Jack Kirby.
Wow.
And he really becomes an artist whose work is now so collectible.
Yeah, and a writer as well, as we were saying earlier about
Yes.
writer-artist. I mean, a lot of the stories that are attributed to Stan, what would happen was an issue of Fantastic Four, Stan would sort of say, I think in this issue, Doctor Doom turns up and takes over the Baxter building where the Fantastic Four live, and we need 20 pages of that. We need it by Friday. And Jack would then go off and put the story together with little margin notes on the pencils, which Stan Lee would then convert into dialogue.
And this is what we called the Marvel method.
The Marvel method, yes.
Ali, you were really quite unfamiliar with this. So the Fantastic Four had not really crossed your path?
I've actually, I've seen the latest movie, so that was the only recollection of the stony man on the left, but I don't know.
The thing, Ben Grimm.
But that's it. I didn't follow Marvel comics as a kid. I was basically just a Beano man. Really?
Oh, good man.
Yeah.
I'm really aware of this when I'm discussing the Marvel movies with what I'd call civilians, and they have no prior knowledge of any of these characters. And so you get a different experience if you're watching the film knowing that sort of thing and not knowing that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because my girlfriend's obsessed with Marvel, so she knows everything about them. And it's kind of a following, isn't it? Because when we go and watch the movies, all of the audience, they're all massive fans and they're all going, like when you're watching Endgame, and they're all connecting these dots from like 3 movies ago, but I am basically a layman just watching, really. Yeah.
So she probably reacted when you found out the Thing's girlfriend in that film was called Roz, which is the name of Jack Kirby's wife.
Oh, wow.
I didn't get that.
I mean, she's just reacting at twice as many things as me. I'm just watching a movie.
I wind my wife up with this as well. She'll just sit there going, oh, that meant something, didn't it? I go, yes, it did.
That's a big problem with cult entertainment. Doctor Who has this as well. Fan service is what they call it, where you're doing something for one group of people, but I'm always aware when I'm the group that's left out.
Oh, I don't get that feeling. Because I always feel like in movies, they're like bonuses, aren't they? Like Marvel films are so well crafted. They know that they can add in all of these Easter eggs, but simultaneously, if you're new to it, you can still really enjoy it as well.
Because, of course, in this day, and we're looking at a comic here from the 1960s, aren't we?
Yeah.
This was the only place you could do this kind of imagination on the page. You couldn't do it on the screen because we hadn't invented the technology.
Yeah, I bet they had no idea that they were going to end up doing those films at that level.
Oh, inconceivable. Yeah, absolutely inconceivable. Yeah.
Because all the effects were real time, weren't they? Yeah.
I mean, one of the reasons I picked this page as well and this story is because it was probably one of the first American comics I bought. And I think it connected for me the world of American superheroes, which I wasn't that au fait with at the time, sort of being a little kid, but with British humour stuff. You say about the Beano. So I used to read the Beano and the Dandy and Whizzer and Chips and all these different comics. So to see an American comic that was as goofy as the stuff we read actually gave me this link that I didn't previously have. So
it's interesting seeing them parodying themselves.
Oh, yeah.
And laughing at themselves and it being done by the people who did it. So Jack Kirby has done this parody of the slight ridiculousness in the picture we're looking at. Reed Richards is handling Johnny Storm with an asbestos glove. I don't know. And he's wearing a thing called a molecular twangulator.
Yep.
Again, possibly parodying the nonsense words that Stan Lee would add on top of his pictures.
Yep, I think so, yes. It's good fun.
It is. And the ability to laugh at themselves. I think they've retained that largely, haven't they? For a long time, they used to have parody things like Fred Hembeck used to do parodies of the Marvel universe.
Wonderful stuff, yeah. We were saying earlier about not cultish, but that sort of inclusive thing about comics is probably the same as you, Kev. Reading those comics and having like the Stan Lee soapbox in there, sort of Stan talking to you about stuff that was going on in the world at the time, just made you part of this club.
Yeah.
And you actually sort of felt involved in a world that, growing in West Bromwich and not having very much to sort of entertain me locally, certainly not the football team. I sort of had something outside my experience, which just thrilled me.
Yeah, they were a minority interest as well. I am still friends with the one person in my school year who read Marvel Comics. There was me and my mate Steve, and lo, these many years later, we're still in touch because of that. So, in the country, probably all the people who ever read Marvel Comics at the time, we're all in the same Facebook group.
Yeah, could well be, yes.
I wouldn't be surprised to find that half of us went on to write and draw comics professionally.
Certainly around the Midlands, Ian Gibson and Mark Farmer and, Luke Stringer.
Yes, the Midlands is quite a melting pot. That's not the word. Boiling pot. A font. It's a place where creators come from.
Yes.
Right. We have been looking at Not Brand X's parody of the Fantastic Four by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, or Jack Kirby and possibly Stan Lee. Now we're going to have a look at what Ali has brought in. This is going to be an interesting one. Mike, it falls to you first to try and describe what we're looking at.
Right, so we have a full page of comics artwork here, and rather than being broken up into the usual square panels, the artwork is divided into 4 distinct images by 2 crossed samurai blades. The top panel has somebody looking towards a forest and mountains with, it's either a sort of a bedroll on his back or an arrow. I'm not quite sure. It might be a quiver of arrows.
It's quiver of arrows, yeah.
It's a quiver of arrows, right, okay. And the next panel has a couple of people talking with a very large word balloon, which I can't quite read because it's a bit blurry, with people working in a rice paddy field in the background.
Yeah, Mike has referred to the image being quite blurry. Readers at home, you'll be able to find this on the holding page, blah, blah, blah. Ali, having gone from directing a movie, The Pearl Comb, which is $1 million movie, and it's just so good. The clarity of your images, the cinematography is just mind-blowing. You have found the poorest quality image of your comic strip page today.
Well, not only that, this is possibly the only image I could find of this comic strip. I wanted to. This is something I genuinely used to read, but it's also very niche. But it's also very particular to someone growing up in the late 80s, 90s. That's a bit of a clue.
Before Ali tells us, Mike, would you like to have a guess? I'll just give my description of it as well. It's got a title at the top, Born the Spirit Warrior, unfamiliar to me. It's laid out on a painted page, a watercoloured page possibly. The voice bubbles are a very unfamiliar shape. They're rectangular shape. The lettering inside, although we can't read it very well, but we can tell it's possibly hand-lettered, and again, in an unfamiliar style with a shaped letter. So it's an unfamiliar style of comic drawing to me. I would suggest possibly even an unfamiliar nationality. The characters are supposed to be Japanese. They're samurai warriors. Those are samurai swords. I don't know whether this is actually from Japan or what. Mike, do you want to guess?
That's a very good question, because if you're looking at the...
Shall I give you a clue as to the location?
Go on.
Please.
It is American.
Ali, spill the tea. What are we looking at?
Well, growing up, I wanted to be a ninja. And
As you do.
As you do. Which possibly led to the... there was all these movies called... there was a collection of movies that came out. And it started with Revenge of the Ninja, American Ninja, Ninja 3, The Domination. And then ninjas became so big in American pop culture that it ended up with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. However, for those of us who really were a serious ninja, there was, of course, Ninja Magazine.
Wow.
And now Ninja Magazine, if you bring up some of the cover artwork, it was just beautifully hand-painted artwork, basically, each month. And the magazine, it would have interviews with famous ninja instructors, And see, that's the clue there on the bottom of the page, is the samurai's being attacked by a ninja.
I've just put up a second page on the screen now.
Which has ninjas. The Bushido guy, yeah.
But the other thing is each month it would have the comic strip in it, which is the adventures of Tamashi, who was, a ninja in feudal Japan. And I used to love... firstly, I just loved the artwork because it was so cool, and you can see it's just very unconventional. Like growing up, I'd only ever seen things like the Dandy and the Beano, where it goes like in little boxes. But here's this thing, like they're separating the images with two samurai swords, almost like it's a poster rather than a comic. Yeah, and that's why I thought I would pull this one out, but I wasn't really expecting that either of you would have seen it.
Well, no, you're bang on, and it's very interesting that you were so admiring of the artwork from being familiar with things like the Dandy and the Beano, because from Mike and my point of view, by this time we're so familiar with the best of the American art, and by this time I would have started to see some Japanese art as well, that this is actually quality-wise quite low down the draftsmanship scale, and from the tastes of someone like myself who was raised on Master of Kung Fu, drawn by a wonderful artist called Paul Gulacy, this is very much in its shadow.
Right.
I still think that I'm impressed with the design sense, though. I quite like that, and I like the giant head in the middle. I think it's an interesting page. I would definitely have stopped and looked at it if I'd seen it in the comic.
It feels it's inventive, but obviously it's only one part of the magazine. The other things would be there'll be genuine articles on how to get out of a stranglehold in 4 easy steps.
Excellent.
And the most hilarious one was there was an advert to buy a blowgun, a proper blowgun, and I ordered one. It arrived, and I'm not joking. You put a dart in it, you went, and it just shot across the room, and it was absolutely deadly. And then a week later, they were outlawed in the UK.
Wow.
I was like 12 at the time. It was quite a thing.
Magazines like that were the 1980s dark web, weren't they?
Yeah, they were in a way. Yeah, it was these sort of niche interests. It was a thing, wasn't it? Yeah, there would be, you would find your thing that you're into, your hobby. But ninja was, for anyone who liked the dark side of martial arts, I guess.
Yeah.
And Ali, had you realised that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles started as a comic?
I did. Yes, I did know that. Yeah, and I did know that it was actually quite constructed because ninjas were already so popular from these, let's face it, B movies that had come out. And me and my friends, we used to watch all of these really cheap martial art films, where the acting is terrible, but the fighting was incredible.
Yeah.
And we just basically used to watch them and then dress up in black jogging kit, go outside and try to be a ninja all night.
It's a wonderful world, the pre-CGI world, because action had to be done in real life. And in Hong Kong and Japan and Korea was where they mastered this chop-socky school of movies. So people like Jackie Chan is the big crossover, and certain directors and actors who we know. But they made this stuff genuinely exciting on film, which contemporary stuff... I mean, James Bond was about as action got in those days, the 70s and the 80s, just because it was so hard to do. You needed to do real stunts, you needed to blow real things up, and they mastered making fighting look exciting.
They actually did, yeah. And I think one of the other things, actually, when it was interesting you say that, I remember there was a Sean Connery film that had ninjas in it, and I can't remember which one it was. It was in the 70s, and when you compared the fight scenes in that to these real martial artists, it didn't even compare. Obviously the movies were terrible, but when it came to the fighting, it was just incredible. And they developed all these camera techniques that now everybody uses, but at that time it's because they've got no way of getting around it. They would use very clever cutting, cutting to the legs and cutting to a wide and then swinging the camera around, just to give to make the action seem faster than it really was. I do know it was the film American Ninja was the one that they did loads of very bad ones. And then American Ninja came out with some half decent actors. And that was the one that really took off.
In comics, there was a sort of timeline which goes from Lone Wolf and Cub, which is not quite ninja, but martial arts influence series. And that was an influence on Frank Miller, who did a ninja called Ronin. And then he put ninjas into his Daredevil comic. His Daredevil comic was then parodied as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, that's it.
And the guru who teaches the Ninja Turtles is ripped off entirely, or parodying entirely, the guy who teaches Daredevil Japanese martial arts skills, and then he fights ninjas in the Frank Miller Daredevil comics in the 1980s.
Yeah,
I've just found out it was Canon Films.
Oh, of course it was. Of
course, it was Canon Films, and they were the master of these sort of. They probably shot them in 20 days or something. And there was a genuine martial artist called Sho Kosugi who had a brilliant face, and I think he actually was a world champion karate martial artist, and he was in all of their films, and he was absolutely stunning. But they did start this craze basically, and hence my love of ninjas.
Right.
Have you drawn a lot of ninjas, Mike?
Not really. No, I can't say I've done a lot. No. Occasional ninjas.
This sort of thing would be quite a challenge for storyboarding, because you can't say in the storyboard, and at this point he will do a triple spin and then back slap someone around the head with his ankle. The choreographer is going to come back to you and say, draw something else.
Well, sometimes you do work with choreography. I was doing a science fiction show for the BBC, not Doctor Who, but where we had a big fight scene, and I actually sort of was brought in on the day to work with the choreographer and the actors to try and work out with the director how we could set the whole thing up, what angles we could use and what have you. I think it was at one point where I was saying that, pointed to one of the actors, said, well, she hasn't got a lot to do at the moment. Maybe she could do this. And she'd go, yeah, tell him to do more so he can draw it and so I can do it.
Yeah, there's nothing worse as an actor when you haven't got anything to do.
Yeah.
That's the absolute curse, is you're in the background of a scene. Yeah. And I actually always see that as slightly bad on the director's side. When I remember I was in this low budget sci-fi movie where there was 8 of us in a computer game. But each scene was only one player involved, so the rest of us just sat around, and it just always looked bad. And I was like, "You've got to give us something. We've got to be on a computer doing something, or taking notes, or something."
Yeah. And one of the weird things about doing storyboarding for films as well is that you are in there with the director all the time.
Yes. Yeah.
So you are sort of close at hand. And I was on a show that was filming out in Prague, and there's a big studios in Prague, it's the old communist studios, but it's the most like a Hollywood studio as you see that, you can imagine. So like when I turned up in the morning, you'd be wandering through the set and there'd be a bunch of Nazis going in one direction, a bunch of knights going in the other direction, and you get ladies in waiting standing there having a fag on their phones. So it was just so bizarre. But I was out and we were doing this big fight scene that was out in the woods behind, so that the big studios up in the hills, big woods outside where they filmed loads of this medieval stuff. And I was chatting with the director and one of the producers, and the actors were there sort of waiting around, and the big people from Amazon wandered off. And one of the actors came up to me and said, "Oh, were you one of the Amazon executives?" I went, "No, I'm the storyboard artist." He went, "Oh, okay then." And just walked off. Middle-aged man in a parka, obviously somebody important. No, I wasn't.
I think the storyboarding is really important. I think one of the things that people don't, when you're doing these huge shows, say for Amazon, they've got huge budgets. But when you're making like a short film like mine, where the time and money is everything, really the storyboarding and the redoing of it is you're actually finding ways to eliminate shots.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And that's really the joy of it. Is so when you go in, you're like, I've got an hour and a half to shoot 3 pages.
Yeah,
I can actually do it with three setups, just 3.
Yeah.
Or is there a clever way to do it in 1 setup? And that's really the fun of it. I think actually is trying to find those elegant ways to basically get your coverage.
Yeah. I mean, one example of that, perfect example of that, is when they did the regeneration from Peter Capaldi into Jodie Whittaker. They only had Jodie for an afternoon.
Yeah.
So they had to get everything. So I sat down with Rachel Talalay and we blocked out the whole thing. So for what was maybe 90 seconds on screen. I did 17 pages of storyboards.
Yeah.
Because what that meant was that Rachel could go in there and talk to the three camera setups and go, this shot, this shot, this shot. There it is. They could shoot the whole thing straight off from my boards.
Yeah.
And turn out what could have spent days in 5 hours. So
I actually I went to I was at one of the film festivals earlier this year in York. There's a film festival called Aesthetica, and my film was playing there, and they had the lead VFX guy from Andor.
Oh wow, okay.
In the second series of Andor, I don't know if you've watched it at all.
Yeah, I love it.
There's a scene where the main bad guy, he walks up a set of stairs when he's entering that new town called Gorman.
Yeah.
And he walks up a set of stairs and he looks across the town, and it looks almost like a Roman amphitheater. Well, that one shot is about 8 seconds. It took them 9 months to prep it.
Wow.
It was a combination of obviously a real-time set, lots of CGIs and a lot of CGI and a lot of extras. But once they'd storyboarded it, they then 3D modeled it all from the storyboards. And then from there, they played around. They could play around with the best camera shot to cover it. It was absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and again, to the casual viewer, you're watching, you're like, looks pretty good. But you have no idea. It's almost a year's worth of work for like 8 seconds.
Yeah. I worked on The Witcher, and there's a sequence towards the end of, I think it's season 2 of The Witcher, where you've got, in the script, it's like 4 lines of text by the writer saying, they look across and they see the hordes coming over the hill towards them. And I spent a month storyboarding that.
Yeah.
Because you've got to get these skeletal creatures on skeletal horses coming over this hill, and you've got the central characters looking back at this and interacting and everything. And it's just like, what was, like you say, 4 lines on a bit of paper.
Yeah. It's a real skill. And particularly with the VFX as well. My first short film, there's a pile of dead farm animals, and we need to bring them back to life.
Right.
And, in my mind, I'd written it. Oh, a pile of animals comes back to life. I got a quote, 15,000 to do that. And then I was like, well, I'm not going to do that. And then I went to a storyboard guy, and we came up with that you saw the pile. We then cut in, and it was a sheep who's obviously dead. And then you see that his eye blink, and then his eye opens.
Yeah.
And then you see a hint of breath, and that's how you know. And then we cut to a wide, and they're all waking up.
Yeah, that's it. You cut through the information, so you get the viewer to be part of the story. Yes,
you're getting them to make the assumptions, basically. Yeah,
that's a trick. Yeah.
I
did one scene in one of the Doctor Who's where they had this biplane going over a battlefield. And they're saying, it's going to cost this much to do this and this much to do this. And I sort of did a couple of sketches and say, well, what if we did it like this? And they went, oh my God, you've saved us 20 grand. And I went, no, it's not for you.
The panels that we've been looking at today, Ali, can you remind us where yours came from?
Yeah, so the Adventures of Tamashii is from the 80s collectible magazine Ninja.
And Mike, where did yours come from?
Mine came from a magazine called Not Brand Ek that Marvel bought out in the late 1960s, which parodied all their comic strip stuff, and I loved it.
Yeah, I don't know if you can find that in a collection these days. Maybe it's on Marvel
there's a Marvel Treasury, Marvel Masterworks of it. So yes,
splendid. And where or what should we look for from you both next? Ali, I can urge everybody to look for The Pearl Comb. It's on Disney Plus in this country and probably around the world. But where should we look for the rest of what you do, Ali?
Well, I mean, obviously, most of this year and then into next year, it is going to be The Pearl Comb. I post everything on my Instagram, which is Ali_Cook, basically.
And Mike, what's coming from you?
There's 2 graphic novels coming out for me this year, one of which is the 3rd volume of a series I've been doing for an American publisher, which isn't regular comics. It's based on an information technology handbook. So IT departments around the world use this as their Bible. It's a thing called the Phoenix Project. And Gene Kim, that wrote it, his big thing was he'd seen so many handbooks on how you should run an IT department and how systems should work, where it's basically you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. Anyway, nobody's going to be engaged in that. So he wrote it as a novel. So you've got these characters interacting, working for a company and doing things, and then going through all the things that you should do in a company. And So they did it as a novel. It's sold millions over the years. It's been out about 15 years. And he wanted to do it as a graphic novel because he thought he could grab more people that way. And they divided into 3 volumes. And the 3rd volume is coming out. I think it's March or April. So that'll be on it. But the other thing I'm doing, which is more proper comic stuff, is a graphic novel called Salvation's Child, which is written by Adrian Tchaikovsky, science fiction writer. Oh, you don't know Adrian Tchaikovsky? He is basically the modern Arthur C. Clarke. He is an astonishing writer of science fiction. He's won so many awards for his books, and they sell like mad. And there's actually a Doctor Who connection with it, because one of the central characters in it, or central characters, are a race of warriors who are all cloned. And these warriors are all cloned are based on Sophie Aldred, Ace from Doctor Who, because she narrates the audiobooks.
Splendid.
Yeah. So that was great fun. So I managed to get Doctor Who connections everywhere.
It all goes full circle. And where do we find you on the socials, Mike?
I'm available on Facebook and Blue Sky and occasionally Instagram, but I think my Facebook stuff gets posted to Instagram all the time, so it's on there. So my Blue Sky tends to be sort of political rants, but my stuff on Facebook and Instagram tends to be silly stuff and comics and science fiction. So,
and remember, listener at home, you're not looking for Michael Collins, who was involved in the 1916 Irish Revolution in the post office, and you're not looking for Alistair Cook, who is the captain of the England cricket team. Just as long as you don't make those mistakes, then your research will be a lot easier than mine was. Thank you for coming in, Ali Cook and Mike Collins.
Thanks,
my
Kev.
pleasure. Thank you.
If you're enjoying this episode of Comic Cuts, the panel show, don't forget there's an entire back catalogue and a first season for you to catch up on. My guests have included comic folk like Brian Bolland, Rachel Smith, Metafrog, Gary Northfield, Nigel Octoloony, Nigel Parkinson, Laura Howell, Sonia Long, David Leitch. We've had the comics laureate Hannah Berry, resident alien creator Peter Hogan, podcasters like Adam Roach, legendary singer-songwriter Dean Friedman, Jessica Martin. The list of comedians includes Ashley Storey, Bethany Black, Will Hodgson, Paul Carenza, Izzy Lawrence, Doug Siegel. There is too many to list, and they've brought in comics from Marvel and DC to the Bunty and the Eagle, from Robert Crumb to Viz, webcomics, obscure manga, all points in between. And sometimes we don't talk about comics at all. Don't forget to click and subscribe, leave a review, and tell a friend. For example, what could these two be talking about?
Man with a swastika on his shirt. He's got his trousers down, his bum out, and he's standing with his feet in a bucket of pig shit on a stage. There's lots of people looking behind him, and he's saying, oh yes, I can feel it coming out now. Go on, fuck off out of it, you blasted queen.
And don't forget, the Queen is visible. Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II is visible in the top left-hand corner. As the curtains part, the Queen is in the royal box. So this is a royal variety performance.
Comic Cuts. We're looking at a panel, and we comprise a panel. There's a few of us, so the panel sees a panel, and we talk about the comics from the panel we discuss, and we call it Comic Cuts.